All right, so given the situation we're in right now, I wanted to make a video about this when I seen Peter Schiff talk about this. And basically, he says the economy doesn't need more consumption, it needs more production. Productive employment will stimulate the economy. Printing money and distributing it to non-productive people will not. It will only result in larger trade deficits, a weaker dollar, and higher consumer prices. Now, again, he's very right. And this is the problem when it comes to this kind of stuff is that 90 to 95% of the population literally could not be any more clueless when it comes to this kind of stuff. Like 95% of the population could not be more clueless when it comes to this. Is in that the government's solution to negative, essentially negative economic growth over the last couple quarters and probably the next at least quarter or two. Maybe not, depending on how much money they print, but their solution to it nonetheless is to just print money and give it to people. The problem is that doesn't get you any, I mean, that gets you somewhere in the short run, but that doesn't get you anywhere in the long run. The only way that you can grow an economy and it be sustainable is to have it grow organically, in that production goes up, right? Production, for an economy to grow organically and not artificially, production needs to go up, right? Like production, productivity, it needs to go up. It's pretty much as simple as that. But again, like I say, the government's solution to this kind of stuff is just to print massive amounts of money. Now, again, he's referring more towards the states. Obviously, in our situation, we're talking a little bit more about Canada, but the states as well. But again, like in the video I made the other day, the Bank of Canada's balance sheet has gone up, as a percent of GDP, a lot more than any other major country in the world. Like the States, the EU, Japan, all these major countries. Canada's gone up a lot more, which means what? Well, Canada might be doing kind of well in the short run, but in the long run, Canada's going to be in for a world of hurt. So again, that's something to look out for. But again, the main point here being is that I mean the other big point I wanted to touch on, I mean, is the government right now is one of the big things they're worried about is, oh, how do we deal with this whole virus situation, and their solution to it is just to grossly overreact to the severity of the virus, and because they need to impose draconian lockdowns and business closure measures, they need to give people free money. They need to give individuals free money and businesses free money, or at the very least, interest-free loans. So that's a big problem. But again, the point I wanted to bring up is what should the government be doing right now? What the government should be doing right now, both at a federal level and a provincial level, is almost entirely focused on how can we grow the economy. And again, this is another thing leftists bring up is, oh, well, you bring up the economy, all they hear is rich people getting richer, but that's complete BS, right? Like that's complete BS. What we're talking about is the everyday person, right? How can we increase wages? How can we increase productivity? How can we create jobs? And by creating jobs, it's not um, the government printing money and paying people to do meaningless work. Because again, that's another thing that the government is very famous for, is they print a bunch of money, or I mean, or at the very least, tax it and keep it out of the free market, which will do a better job of creating jobs, and just create make work projects, right? Like the classic, digging holes and filling them back in kind of thing. Now, again, not literally that, but essentially that. So again, that's kind of what the government likes doing, is that they want to look like they're doing something, and rather than actually just letting the free market figure it out, they just dig holes and fill them back, pay people to dig holes and fill them back in again. But again, getting back to the main point, the government's the entirety of the government, almost the entirety of the government's focus right now should be how can we increase productivity and how can we create um, jobs. And again, how the government does that is, this is another big fallacy of people nowadays, is that a lot of people think that the government can do a lot to help people, when in reality they can. I mean, they can give people free money, but that's not helping people. Giving people free money or free healthcare is pretty much the same as giving a crackhead free crack, right? Like, you fix the problem in the here and now, but you don't fix the problem in the long run. The government can't do a whole heck of a lot to help people, right? Like, the government's not going to help people out nearly as much as what people think. The government doesn't have nearly as much power to solve people's problems as what the average person thinks. But on the flip side, the government does have a lot of power to create problems, right? Like, they do have a lot of problems to create problems, for the simple reason being is that if they just got out of the way, if they deregulated, cut spending, cut taxes. I mean, maybe not cut taxes, but at the very least, don't even put any new ones in. I mean, especially like the carbon tax and stuff like that, that should be cut. But nonetheless, if the government just got out of the way and let the free market handle things, things would get better. The problem being is that they're not going to do that. And like I say, their solution to it is just to create a bunch of problems. Again, so that's kind of the big thing, is that, like I said, the government they can't do a whole heck of a lot to help the problem, or at the very least nearly as much as what people think, but they can do a whole heck of a lot to hurt things, and that's the big problem. So anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up today. So if you'd like to, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you follow me on Twitter especially, but also BitChute and Parler as backups to Twitter and YouTube. All those links are in the description, so you can find them all there.